continuation of the come-up of Genghis Khan. When the Mongols encountered fortified walls, their natural weakness as a steppe people, Genghis Khan did not retreat from the problem. He solved it. He recruited Chinese engineers and Persian siege specialists. He absorbed their knowledge and integrated it. He adapted constantly and without ego and turned every weakness into a future strength. He lost individual battles. He almost never lost campaigns. And here is where the world breaks. With Mongolia unified and the machine of his army running at its terrifying peak, Genghis Khan turned outward, the Xia Kingdom, the Jin dynasty of northern China, a sophisticated empire that had long regarded the Mongol nomads with contempt. They had walls, they had professional armies, they had centuries of accumulated military wisdom. It was not enough. Then came the move that would define the second half of his campaigns. The Khwarezmian Empire, a great Islamic power stretching across modern Iran and Central Asia, made a catastrophic error. Its ruler murdered Mongol merchants and diplomats, then killed the ambassadors Genghis Khan sent to demand accountability. To Genghis Khan, this was not an insult to be absorbed. It was a declaration of war. What followed was the destruction of some of the most magnificent cities in the medieval world. Samarkand, Bukhara, Merv, once one of the largest cities on Earth, now reduced to rubble and silence. The human cost was staggering. Population estimates for these regions show collapses that took generations, sometimes centuries, to recover from. This was not accidental destruction, swept up in the chaos of war. It was deliberate. Terror was the message, and the message was being delivered at scale. By the time Genghis Khan died in 1227, likely from injuries sustained in a fall from a horse, though historical accounts vary, his empire stretched from the Pacific coast of China to the Caspian Sea, and his sons and grandsons would push it further still. Was he more than a destroyer? Here is where the story demands that we slow down and look more carefully, because Genghis Khan was not simply a force of destruction. He was, in documented and measurable ways, a builder, and the contrast between these two realities is one of the most genuinely fascinating puzzles in all of history. He created the Yasa, a legal code governing his empire. Religious figures and institutions were protected and exempted from taxation. Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, and practitioners of traditional Mongolian shamanism all operated under a framework of official tolerance that was, by the standards of the medieval world, remarkable. This was not idealism, it was pragmatism. A unified empire riven by religious civil war was difficult to rule. Stability served his interests, so stability was enforced. The Silk Road, which had been fractured and dangerous for decades due to regional conflicts, was revitalized under Mongol control. The period historians call the Pax Mongolica, the Mongol Peace, saw merchants, diplomats, scholars, and travelers moving across vast distances under the protection of Mongol law. Ideas flowed, technology spread, cultures encountered one another in ways that had rarely been possible before. Some historians argue this acceleration of exchange was a significant factor in the eventual emergence of the Renaissance in Europe, that the knowledge and goods that flowed along Mongol-protected trade routes helped reshape Western civilization. Others note that the same trade routes likely carried the bubonic plague westward, contributing to the Black Death that would kill roughly a third of Europe's population in the 14th century. Connection, it turns out, carries everything, the good and the terrible alike. We are now past the midpoint. If this has been worth your time, a like genuinely helps this channel reach more people who love history. Thank you. What was the cost? We have to be honest here and sit with it. The death toll attributed to the Mongol conquests is among the highest in human history relative to the world population at the time. Historians debate exact figures. Pre-modern casualty estimates are always uncertain, but the population collapses visible in the archaeological and historical record across Persia, Central Asia, and parts of China are not ambiguous. They are real, and they are vast. The destruction of Baghdad in 1258, carried out by Genghis Khan's grandson Hulagu, was a cultural catastrophe of the first order. The House of Wisdom, one of the greatest repositories of human knowledge in the medieval world, was burned. Scholars were killed. Centuries of accumulated learning were lost. These were not accidents. Terror was a strategic tool applied deliberately and at enormous scale. We can acknowledge Genghis Khan's political genius, his military innovation, his administrative sophistication, and still sit with the full weight of what that genius cost. History is not a court. We are not here to convict or acquit anyone, but we owe it to the millions who lived through these events and the millions who did not survive them to look at the complete picture honestly. The Mongol conquests were among the most transformative and most devastating events in human history. Both of those things are true at once. Genghis Khan died in 1227. Per his instructions, his burial site was kept secret. The soldiers who carried him to his grave were, reportedly, killed to protect the location. His tomb has never been found. He left behind the largest contiguous land empire in human history, roughly 24 million square kilometers at its peak, an area the size of the African continent. A 2003 genetic study found that approximately 0.5% of the world's male population, some 16 million people, may carry a Y chromosome lineage traceable to Genghis Khan and his close male relatives. In the most literal biological sense, he is one of the most consequential human beings who ever lived. His memory is not one thing. In Mongolia, he is a founding father. His face appears on currency, on statues, on the country's main airport. He is not remembered as a tyrant. He is celebrated as the man who forged a nation from nothing. Across parts of Central Asia, Iran, and China, his name carries centuries of grief. The wounds of the conquests did not heal quickly, and in some places left marks that the historical and cultural memory has never entirely let go of. In the West, he has become a kind of archetype, the unstoppable force of history, proof that a single human life can alter the trajectory of civilizations. All of these things are true at once. And what stays with me at the end of this story is not the scale of the empire. It is the beginning, a 9-year-old boy, abandoned, enslaved, left to die on a frozen steppe by the very people who were supposed to protect him. And instead of breaking, instead of becoming nothing, which is what the world had decided he would be, he watched and learned and waited. And then he rewrote everything. Was Genghis Khan a monster? The evidence for that case is overwhelming and cannot be dismissed. Was he a builder? The evidence for that is equally real. Was he a product of a brutal world who became more brutal than the world that made him, and in doing so accidentally connected civilizations, accelerated history, and changed the trajectory of the human story? Almost certainly. The people who change the world the most are rarely the people who fit neatly into a single verdict. And maybe that is exactly what makes Genghis Khan's story, 800 years later, still impossible to look away from. If this story moved you, challenged you, or taught you something, subscribe. We will keep digging into the lives that shaped everything. And leave a comment. Where do you land on this one? Conqueror, builder, or something far more complicated than either?